mechanical engineer who works for Transport for London, and she'll be sharing some insights about her journey and about the engineering industry with us. I just wanted to mention that today's session is organised in collaboration with TEDI, which is one of London's newest universities providing innovative engineering courses. And the session is also one of the activities that we run at West King to celebrate Women's History Month and the International Women's Day too. Before we start, I'd just like to mention that the session is being recorded. We'll share the recording with you afterwards. And it will be 30 minutes long. Neera will do a talk for us, and then we'll have a Q&A session. So please put any questions that you have in the chat function, and we'll address as many as possible later on. And I would like to hand over to Steve from TEDI now for a brief introduction. Over to you, Steve.
Thank you very much. So I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to take up Neera's time, because I know she has some fantastic things about her experience in engineering and the reasons why to do it. But as mentioned, TEDI-London is a new design engineering university. We'll have our first intake in September, and really the reason for us coming about is to transform the way engineering education is done. So we have a greater diversity of students coming in, a different way of doing things that has a greater impact on the type of things that you can do afterwards, really mirroring the integration of different disciplines that you have in industry, and really meeting the needs and requirements that industry have, not just for engineers, but also the skills that they're looking for. So the program being predominantly project-based, hands-on, engaging things. And so Neera and I spoke quite some time ago now, in early kind of parts of TEDI-London, and Neera's been engaged with us in terms of talking to some of the events that we've done, engaging with students. And I know her and some of her colleagues at TFL have a particular interest in engaging people into industry, but also that same element that we have of how you increase that diversity and that excitement about the great things that you can do in engineering. So I will pass on to Neera to tell you a little bit more about kind of her experiences, why she thinks engineering is fantastic, and some of the things you should probably consider with it. Neera, away you go.
Wicked, thank you, Steve. So yeah, my name's Neera Kukadia. I am a chartered mechanical engineer. I am currently working at Transport for London as a project engineer. So I will go through kind of what I do in my day-to-day role, and then generally about engineering, but I'll just start right from the beginning of how I kind of got into this industry. I had an unconventional route. When I was growing up, I basically had no idea what engineering was. So for many of you on this talk, you will be attending these types of talks and doing research on the internet, and some of you are studying BTEC engineering. So you probably already have an appreciation for a little bit about what engineering is, but I had no idea at all. So taking my GCSEs and A-levels, I kind of just went with anything that I was good at and what I enjoyed. And that just happened to be around maths, ICT, art and design was a big part of it. And initially, I think I was a bit lost. I didn't know where I wanted to go. And like many young people, what you think you're going to be when you're in A-levels or GCSE, you don't actually end up becoming. So for me, I was really interested in optometry and becoming an optician. I just found it really interesting. But I got a D in biology in my A-levels. So I knew that kind of wasn't the right career path for me. I then kind of just basically went on the internet and just researched what does maths, ICT and art kind of, work together in. And I was getting a lot of things to do with architecture, design engineering. And that was really the first time that I came across engineering as a term. Like, what is it? Because to me, it had always been, the person that comes to fix your internet is an engineer, or the, at work or school, the person that fixes the printer is an engineer. So it was kind of conflicting and confusing for me. So once I watched a video by Arup. So Arup is a consultancy, and they do design and construction for engineering and construction projects. And I saw a video which basically explained to me what engineering really is. So if you want to be a civil engineer, you can design skyscrapers, bridges, tunnels, all of those, great big things that you see all around you. If you wanted to do mechanical engineering, it's all about, if taps, the flow of water, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, any sort of movement things. And if you were really interested in electrical engineering, which is all to do with things you can't see, and especially the Internet of Things, which is very big right now. So I kind of started to get into this, I guess, rabbit hole of, what is engineering? And I settled on studying mechanical engineering at university. It was something that I took a chance on. I had no idea what it is. I didn't take physics for A levels. I hadn't. So I got into university through clearing, which not a lot of people know. So I didn't get into my first choice, which was Nottingham. It did kind of, bring me a bit down because I was a bit gutted. However, I, went through clearing, got a place at Brighton University, which was an amazing university. I did my 3 years undergrad. I did a year in industry working at a valve manufacturer's. I just really wanted to see what it was like to get experience in industry and figure out, is this really what I want to do? And I left that year and it was an amazing year. I learned so much. It was really hands-on. I got to go in the workshop and actually, build the valves and understand, if you put a seal here, what does that do? If you miss it out, what does it do? So there's a lot of, great things I learned in that year. So I would really encourage you to get as much work experience as you can. Contact people if you go to these types of talks, take their email addresses, and, just network as much as possible to try and get as much physical experience as possible. I know we're in COVID now, so you can't really go into workplaces, but a lot of companies have started to move into virtual work experiences. So, continue to do that. And then I did my master's in mechanical engineering, which again was amazing. My favourite part was kind of drawing something on CAD or on paper, going to the workshops, whether it's wood workshops or the metal workshops, and learning how to use the lathe or the drilling machine, cutting machines, and then seeing a physical product made. Like that was really kind of for me what made me realise that this is actually fun. It's not just a job, it's actually really fun as well, which is probably the best thing I think about engineering. You get to impact positively people's lives, because all sorts of engineering is going to impact somebody, and B, you actually have fun whilst you work and make money, which I think is just the perfect goal. So then I graduated and I rolled on to TfL's graduate scheme. Graduate schemes are great no matter what industry you're in. So even if you wanted to go into any other STEM subjects, they're very similar to apprenticeships, which I would highly recommend as well if going to universities is not your first choice. They have rotational placements, so you move around the entire business and you kind of figure out what for me, I spent some time on the track. I did stuff with actual trains. I worked in lifts and escalators. It was the first time that I ever actually understood how complex escalators are. And I settled on working for construction projects within the railway. So now my main role is a project engineer. I manage the construction of the Elephant and Castle station capacity upgrade. So when you're in and around London, if you go past Elephant and Castle station now, there's hoardings up everywhere, and it is a construction site. And what they're doing is just regenerating the entire area. So the Southwark Council are working with a developer to basically build loads of new shops, buildings, a new university building for UAL. So there's loads going on right there. And TfL are building a brand new station entrance and new tunnels. So if you think about just walking through any station in London, if you just look up, you will find there are about 20 different disciplines involved. So you have lighting, you have power, you have water, heating, you've got all the signs. So those signs are actually designed by somebody to make sure that nobody gets lost. There are cameras, there's speakers, there's literally everything you can think of. So the great thing about my job is that I literally have to get involved with every different discipline, and I get to speak to all the different engineers who are actually designing the works, and my job is to manage the works. So once I've got everybody's designs in, I'll cross-reference between them all, making sure that they're safe, they're compliant, and they're as per building regulations. So TfL is a little bit different to other construction projects because we work with people like you who use our network. So absolutely the most important thing for us is safety, making sure that when you're walking through the station, nothing falls on your head or you don't trip down the escalators, etc., etc. So safety is the most important thing. Another big part is making our station as green and as sustainable as possible. So as everyone is probably aware, there is a big global warming crisis, and we're trying to move away from using a lot of cement, reducing our carbon footprint. Can we do off-site building, modular builds, and then bring them into the station? So all these different things. There's so many different elements to my job. I've just spoken about kind of, very nutshell, but it is so big. And I think the great thing about engineering is that you might not know what you want to do now, but you might know that you want to go into engineering. But there is so much within the engineering sector. There's so many different disciplines, and that goes all the way from marine and medical engineering, to civil engineering, which is, the heavy construction part of it. I would say the biggest piece of advice is to research on the internet. You guys have the gift of having the internet and YouTube and all these different kind of applications and talks like this, which are great to kind of just research whatever you want and to stay curious. A lot of people that did go into engineering in the past, 20, 30, 40 years, they didn't have that and they just fell into it. But you've got a real good opportunity to kind of understand what you're getting into, and you don't have to just be an engineer. There's so many roles within that. So you could be a project manager working for a construction project, commercial manager, and the list goes on. I would say getting physical experience is really important. So TEDI-London are a different university, which I did say to Steve that if it was available when I was looking, I probably would have gone towards that route, just because the thing that I enjoyed the most at university was getting real life experience. And what I've realized is that you do not have to be technically the most smartest person in the room to be a good engineer or to be the most successful engineer. It's a lot about communication skills and how you speak to people and how you explain ideas, how you explain your solutions. And it's about talking to all different types of people. So in one day, I will have to speak to 3 different levels of people. So when I mean levels, I mean someone who's an apprentice who maybe doesn't know as much. And then I'll need to speak to a director who knows way more than I do. But it's about finding the right balance and knowing how to speak to those people and what language do you use. And the other big thing is presenting. So like today, virtual presenting is a little bit easier than in real life, because if I saw, 30 of you, I'd probably be a bit more nervous than seeing you on the screen. But presenting is a really, really important part of, I think, being successful in any career. It builds up your confidence. It allows you to speak to anyone in any situation. So if you do go to networking events, which is something I definitely recommend, it will definitely help you out in that. So if anybody thinks that, I hate presenting or anything like that, that used to be me at university. I used to hate it, but I pushed myself to continue to present as many times as I possibly could. And I wouldn't say I'm still perfect at it, but at least now I feel a little bit more comfortable doing it. I do just want to touch on women in engineering, since it was International Women's Day the week before last. So only, I think it's 16 or 13% of engineers in the UK are women. Steve will have to correct me on that statistic. I think I might have just said the TfL statistic. I think it's 16% of engineers at TfL are women, which is not much at all. And to put that into perspective, pretty much every meeting I go to, I am the only woman in that room. And it is sometimes intimidating, and it is sometimes it doesn't feel normal. But the more women we encourage to come into the industry, the better it will be in the long run. I would say that a lot of girls tend to not go for STEM subjects or to study engineering because they think it's going to be very technical. And like I just explained, it's not. I've not done a calculation for about 4 years. I've literally done managing and more report writing. So there's something for everybody, and I would say don't be scared because of one perception that you might have. There is a question, so I'll just answer it now. TfL is so competitive, what tips would you give? So when I applied for the graduate scheme, I was actually put on a reserve list. So I was on the last assessment centre, which basically means that they had chosen loads of other people to interview before they chose me, which is fine. That's fine. That happens. You have to take the good with the bad. However, when I got to the interview process, it was a very busy day, a lot going on, assessment centres, technical interviews, competency interviews, group sessions. I did the best I could. And when I left, I felt that I didn't perform that well in the technical interview. I had not done much on the railway at university, so I think that, that didn't really help me. But when I got a call from TfL HR team, they asked me how they think my interview went. And I said, oh, I think it went okay, but my technical interview wasn't too well. And she said, yeah, you're right. Your technical interview score was not the highest. It still met the benchmark. It wasn't the highest. However, we don't just look for people that on paper are really smart. We look for people that have good communication skills and can, like talk and deliver. And that's one of the reasons I believe that I actually got the role, was because of my personality and the way I was. So, you have to have the qualifications in terms of, if you're applying for the apprenticeship, you need to have the qualifications. And if you're applying for the grad scheme, you need your degree level grades. That's very important, because without those grades, it's unlikely that you will get in. But it's also about all the other stuff that can kind of help and bump you up if you do not perform that well on the day. I would say seek advice on your personal statements, on your CVs, anything that you are submitting to employers. Often you would submit a different CV when you're younger to retail jobs than you do to industry, and there is quite a difference. So always seek guidance, and you can come to your careers advisors at universities or schools, and even get yourself on LinkedIn to connect with people. And most people are just willing to help all the time. So if you message somebody and said, hey, I've seen your profile, can you look at my CV? 9 times out of 10, they won't say no. I will just talk a little bit about some of the projects I've worked on. So working at TfL, I was born and brought up in London, so I've used the tube throughout my whole life, getting to school, visiting my friends, etc. So for me, it's really, really fun, the fact that when I do work on a project and then I use the tube with my friends, I can say to them, oh yeah, do you see those cables? I designed that they were going to go from A to B. And it's that kind of, I guess, the fact that I am impacting my friends and family's journeys is what really makes my job, to me, really fun and exciting, and it gives me a sense of purpose. I've never woken up and thought, oh, I really don't want to go to work. And I've been at TfL for 6 years now. Not everyone at TfL will say the same thing, but for me, my journey has been really great. I get to work on really cool projects. I've worked on High Speed 2, so that's the train going from Euston to Birmingham to Midlands. Which is, just really exciting. It's in the news all the time, so it's great that something that you're working on is actually on the news. I've worked on Bank Station, a capacity upgrade, and what most people don't know is when you're at Bank Station or in the area, it's so incredibly busy, and there are so many Grade 1 listed buildings out there. There's Bank of England, Monument, etc. But literally, if you go down one shaft, you will see there is a network of new tunnels being dug through every single day, 24 hours a day. And that's one of the most amazing things, is when you're actually physically on site and you see something being built that nobody else can see, that eventually your friends and family will be using. I've seen another question: what kind of problems have you had to solve on your projects? So they range from really small projects to really small problems to really big problems. So a big problem would be you've put a core hole into a pile wall, but it's been missed 100 times, and then you're just about to sign off a design, and someone said, oh, I have a cable. Another person, so another discipline engineer will say, a power engineer might say, oh, I've got a cable going through there, so you can't put your cables in. That basically means you have to pause the design, you have to go back. So this is 3D modeling, which costs a lot of money, and you have to redesign a whole pile wall, which is a lot of calculations for structural engineers. It's a lot of geotechnics involved. It's basically one thing that may have been missed or misaligned can impact about 10 different engineers spending the next month working on. So that's a big problem that we have actually had. And a small problem is something maybe so standards, we have a lot of standards, and so they're basically like building regulations. So if you don't meet them, you have to have a concession towards them. So a lot of the times you will have a narrow passageway, so a head height has to be about 2.4 meters in a station. Often we have it slightly less at 2.2 meters. So how do you fix that? Do you cut into the tunnel and make it taller, or do you reroute customers around the station so that they don't use that as much? Little things like that. What was the problem/project who are most proud of having solved, participated in? So I'd say Bank Station. Bank Station, I don't know how many people have been there, but it's been in construction for the last, I don't know, I'd say 8 years. It's been a really long project. It was a very small problem I had, but I solved it and I was quite happy about it. There was a transformer sticking out into the room where we were making it in. The room was being made into a passageway, and I had to find an alternative place to put this transformer. But there's loads of different things you have to think about. If I said to you, can you please move this transformer to another part of the station? Everyone in the room will probably say, oh, that's easy. You just, pick it up and move it. I had to think about so many different things. I had to think about EMC regulations, which is the electromagnetic compatibility with different other cables. If you think about how much actually goes into running a station, you have to, make sure it's 600 meters away from one cable, but then 500 millimeters away from another cable. So I did find a place to put it, and it meant that we could open up that passageway in time, and it saved us not delaying it and not opening up to the customers. What was the actual role of all those you have sampled you enjoyed the most? So my role has always been a project engineer. So project engineers will always manage the designs. So when designs come through, if there is a problem that I see in there, so that either it doesn't meet a certain standard, it will have to be up to me to work with all the different people. So that could be the station staff that actually use the station, or go through the council to make sure everyone's on the same page with the new design. Was your engineering degree useful for your job, or do you? I enjoyed my degree. It was a mechanical engineering degree. I don't use any of it now, other than the management modules I had. I think I only had 2 of them across the years, so only those 2 are actually useful now. But I still enjoyed my degree, so I still think for me, I'm glad I did my degree. However, do I need it to do my job now? The answer is no, I probably don't. And how creative is your job? It's not as creative as I would like it to be, but there is an element of me being able to make a difference. So if I think part of the station should be designed slightly differently, I can put that across, and the whole team will discuss it. And then that my change potentially might actually come into action and be constructed. So there is a little bit of thinking outside of the box and how you can do things. I don't know how much time I have, so I'm just reading the questions. Steve or Eleanor, do you want to jump in, or do you want me to just go on?
I guess you've got the questions in. It's interesting, and saying to, I guess, anyone else that wants to drop questions in, we seem to be on a bit of a roll with those, so go for it. As you can see, you've got your next one, which is how many people are in your team, and do you manage a big team? Do you like that part?
Yeah, so projects will always grow and reduce in size. At the moment, there's probably about 15 people in my direct project, but then going out into the wider team, there's probably about 30. I manage design engineers, so as in I have to manage how much time they spend on the project and the work coming in, etc. I don't manage people, so I don't manage an assistant engineer where I would do their reviews and day-to-day stuff like that.
So you mentioned before on there, just sort of thinking, because I guess this is quite an important one, because you mentioned it before, of the percentage of women in engineering. Yes. And I think there's 2 different figures in there. One in terms of those doing engineering roles, and then women in the sector. Both are a lot lower than the industry would like, and I think makes sense. So why, Eleanor's question, why do you think it is important for more girls and women to pursue engineering?
Okay, I've got a clear answer for this. So I'll put it in towards the transport network and TfL. So historically, TfL has been designed by men and built by men. That's literally how it is. I've gone to depots where there's not been a female toilet for hundreds of meters. I've had to go to either a different building or somewhere to find a female toilet. That happens everywhere. And that's mainly because women have not been involved in design and construction for a very, very long time, and they've only just come in. So now, the fact that we have a more diverse group, and it's not just women, it's people from different ethnicities, different backgrounds. Everyone has a different way of thinking and a way that design should be done, and that's why we need a range of different people. We don't just need men, we don't just need women, we need both, and we need all different types of ethnicities, disabilities, everything. Because for me, when I'm designing a station, I will now think of, okay, if I had a child, where would I change my child? There needs to be a big enough toilet for that. If I was in a wheelchair, you know, we need wheelchair access. It's all these different things. And some people you live your day-to-day life how you are, so you think in one way. So it's definitely good to have those different people involved, and women is a big part of that. And it's to make it safer. A lot of the times we don't think about designing in bright lights at, you know, bus stops and stations, where it can be quite intimidating and dark and scary. So it's about building in a safer future for everyone using it as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Go on.
To see about upper degree level apprenticeships, yeah, we do. I'm not completely sure, but I know that there's a level 6, a level 7, a level 8, maybe, I don't know. There's a lot of them. There's normal apprenticeships, but there's also degree level apprenticeships. They are live now, I believe. I don't know if they've been taken down, but a week ago they were definitely live, and the graduate schemes are live as well now. So just have a look on the website. I would say LinkedIn is the best place to kind of just look. Everything is you know, advertised through there. So definitely build yourself a profile.
Hi Neera, it's Carlo here from the college, and we work with quite a lot of students who are always deliberating, you know, should I go to uni or should I do an apprenticeship? So with engineering, would you say that the pathways are pretty similar, or, you know, would you say one's better than the other, or, you know, what advice would you give a student that's thinking, shall I do an apprenticeship with TfL or another company, or shall I go to university?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the person. So some people are, you know, super academic and they want to have a degree, and, you know, they want to go through the years of, you know, either living outside or outside of your home or whatever. So there is a kind of an element of, you learn lifestyle skills, which I definitely benefited from. However, I do think now apprenticeships give you and offer you so much more. They give you physical experience, they give you industry experience. And if you mapped out, you know, a person with a degree and a person that went on the apprenticeship at TfL anyway, you would see that at a point they do actually merge, and you will end up doing the same job, and you will roughly be on the same amount of money. It might take you a little bit longer to get there, but it does merge. And you know, I now work with ex-apprentices as project managers, and they're about, I don't know, 6 years younger than I am, but they're, you know, doing the same level of role. So it's really good for people that kind of just want to get stuck in, you know, and want to get that just experience from the get-go. And those people are generally more confident, I would say, because you're thrown into the deep end.
Yeah.
So there's an interesting question here from Kimberly on how was your experience on Escape? And I'd like to add to that of, do you still apply anything that you learned from that about yourself and about engineering in your day-to-day now?
Yeah, so my experience was good and bad. So it was good because it was a crazy experience, really good, but it was bad because I just don't do camping, and it was just, you know, the worst, like, survival aspect of it. So just, yeah, that scarred me forever. But I did learn. I basically, what I learned from that TV show was I used to second guess myself a lot. I don't know if it's because I'm in a male dominated area or not, but I would always, if I had a thought, I would kind of just, you know, sit back and not say it. I would never speak out in meetings. And after that episode, I kind of realized that I know what I'm talking about, and, you know, you have to be confident in what you know and what you've gone through. So now I do just say things without worrying if it's wrong or right, if it's, you know, silly or not silly. I just say it, and most of the times it's fine, it's the right thing to say. So I think that's probably the most personal thing I got out of it, was to not second guess myself and just be confident with what I know.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm aware of time. Are you okay for a couple more minutes, Neera?
Yeah.
I was going to, Neera, I was thinking to end on, actually, what would be really great is, because we've got a mixture of students here from A level, we've got girls, we've got engineers. So, you know, a lot of them will have those kind of qualifications. What a student now, if they were thinking about going into engineering and trying to get onto that apprenticeship or trying to get into that top university, what would they do to make them shine?
I would say communication. So the way you communicate can change absolutely everything. I've done a lot of interviews for the apprenticeships at TfL recently, actually, and sometimes you can tell a person is really smart and knows exactly what they're talking about, but they just can't get it out. And unfortunately, you know, the way the marks are scored for, and the criteria is for apprenticeships and graduate schemes, you can't, if they've not said it, you can't write it down, even though you just know it's there. So I would really say work on speaking to people. How you come across is it's people, you know, just don't even think about that sort of stuff, but it's so important. And you can always learn things. Like I've been in my interview at TfL, like I didn't know a lot of the stuff about the railway, but I was open and honest and said, I don't know, but I'm a fast learner and I've done this at degree level, so I'm sure I can transfer my skills into doing this, this and this. So it's not always about knowing absolutely everything, and don't feel like you need to know everything. It's more just that you can communicate that you are willing to learn and develop those skills as you go on.
Brilliant. That's really good advice. Thank you.
Just one last question, because I'm aware of time. So Eleanor said, you mentioned that if you had the option, you would have considered TEDI-London for your studies. What is it you think TEDI-London are doing differently to develop the future engineer? Yeah,
so I think the thing for me that's really, well, it's what I enjoy now, it's kind of project work. And I didn't have much of that at university. I think I did one project in the last 2 years of my degree. So it's about, you know, connecting with industry, number one. So it's actually real life. It's not just a made up thing, which my university did. And it's doing those projects, working with different people, group work. Those are things that you basically do in your day-to-day job. It's not fake, it's real. So the sooner you learn that, the sooner you're going to be more comfortable and confident with it. So that's why I would, say that what TEDI-London are trying to do is it's going in the absolute right direction.
Brilliant. Thank you, Neera. Just to add to some of the points that you made through it, we had our industry strategic advisory group meeting this week, and we regularly engage with Arup that you mentioned at the beginning, the deputy chair. Arup sits on our group, and a few others, and it's something that they all talk about: the communication, the understanding of the commercial aspects around the projects and what's required. And some of those other things that you pointed to in terms of the policy and the other things, the different things that you've got to understand in order to then drive that project forward, get it landed, make it happen. It is much broader than, I guess, necessarily that you're told about before you do it in an actual project, whether that's on a degree program or an apprenticeship or anything else. It just does play such a big part, and it's something that we are constantly hearing from employers and yourself and others. Thank you ever so much. I will.
The road is a roundup.